My strongest orc rebelled against me. In this video, I'm building up an army of legendary orcs to retake the fort and bring Bagabug to justice. Before embarking on this quest, Talion visited the tomb of Khal Brimborn. There he contemplated what he should do, and he foresaw his victory. The key to this victory is the Abandoned. Talion was able to recruit the Abandoned thanks to 2 Baga the Alchemist variants that had entered his reality. After the fight, Talion was able to convince the Abandoned to join his cause, and become his war chief to lead his forces in retaking the fort from Bagabug. But we still needed 5 others. Talion sought out a particular legend in the desert region, a very dangerous wasteland, roamed by the foulest orcs, fire-breathing drakes, a desolate land. Talion travelled for days in search of this legend. This one orc he knew would make a difference in the fight. An orc that other orcs could rally behind, and a close personal friend of the Abandoned. It was here at this ambush that Talion would find this orc.
Do you know what we're guarding? No! That's because you don't need to know. Just guard it!
The original painted orc. Clinically insane. I've never noticed he has a skull on his, clinically insane. One of Baga's most loyal bandits. After the death of Baga, he sought to explore the world. A gross and violent orc, but that wouldn't bother the painted. Did I mention he's clinically insane? The painted charged in. The gut slurper has no idea what's about to hit him. To show my support, I jump in. I'd have to fight alongside the painted to show him that I'm still strong. You can see the painted still has his sorcery powers.
You maggot! I will never tire of seeing you die.
Together with the painted, we made short work of the gut slurper. The painted takes great pride in his poison. He loves nothing more than to maniacally laugh while an orc suffers, convulsing with the many different poisons running through their veins, shutting off valves to their heart, until they eventually succumb. The painted had had his fun. It was time to chat. I told the painted about Bagabug and the rebellion. He was hesitant to join until he heard that the Abandoned had already signed on. He agreed to fight, as long as he'd be my number 2. Second, of course, to the Abandoned. I left the desert for Sirgost. This icy cold map breeds strong orcs, and that's exactly what I've come here for. This beast of an Olog. Cast out as a child, he was made to grow up with the Caragors, and as a result became an absolute savage with immense strength. He's exactly what we need to help take down this rebellion. The beast recognizes strength, so he's loyal to me as long as I have it. Moments after the beast left, I was ambushed. I should have known this would happen being so close to the fort that Bagabug had taken. It was the unkillable.
That's the last time I let you hit me with that thing! I'm not that forgiving, and I'm not that stupid!
One of the orcs that ran during the initial rebellion. He turned to Bagabug's side out of fear. And now he'd been sent to assassinate me. Since the rebellion, Bagabug had put a hit out against me. There was a huge reward on my head. Bagabug knows these orcs can't kill me permanently, but they can at least slow me down. The unkillable, though, has no chance. He's weak to frost, which makes him an easy target for me. That's right, unkillable. Run back to Bagabug. Tell him I'm coming for him. You can tell him all about this crazy army we're building. There's nothing Bagabug can do to stop me. At this moment, Talion started having flashbacks about what had happened. He was worried. Worried about what Bagabug had done to the Puppet Master, one of the original Baga's bandits. What could he have done to him to make him turn against FAsterisks? After this fight, I was pissed. I was immediately resurrected. I then came across this completely random enemy captain, one of Bagabug's scouts. This must have been the orc that had given away my position. This orc must have told Bagabug exactly where the Puppet Master's house was. Mog the Deathless. I may have still been weak after my resurrection, but I jumped straight in. I needed to burn off some steam. This Caragor was not going to get in my way. I had to kill an orc right now. Deathless threw Caragors at me over and over again. He was panicking. He knew that I was out for blood.
Hunting you wasn't much of a challenge. Let's see if slaying you is better sport.
He talked about hunting me as if I was the prey. I responded by sinking as many arrows as I could into his skull. It didn't take long for him to crumble. Then he was given the most insulting death known to an orc, thrown from a small ledge. In this lush green region, I was in search of more legendary orcs to join my army. Limpleg, Baga the Alchemist's oldest friend. Limpleg was around whenever Baga had his initial rise to power. If anyone knew the ins and outs of the Sirgost fort, it was Limpleg. He said if I helped him hunt down a coward orc that he'd join the army. It wasn't long until we found this orc.
Loot bag! All your weapons, all your kit. So many pretty things you brought for me.
Quick explosion of the fireplace, he's not gonna know what's hit him. Look at that, he's gone absolutely flying. Look at him go. Limpleg witnessed the power of Talion and FAsterisks. As long as I destroyed this orc, he'd join our crusade. The Pinch came to his senses and decided to run. I pinned his foot and waited for Limpleg to deal the final blow. After that, Limpleg agreed to join the army. There was one more orc I needed to recruit in this area, but an evil feeling came over me. I was not alone. The Puppet Master ambushed me, tackled me, punched me, and then killed me there on the mountaintop.
Thought you could push me around, did you? I'm an Uruk, not a whipping boy!
Clearly his mind has been twisted by Bagabug. What did Bagabug say to him? What could he have possibly done to make him turn on me like this? I respawned in the local area, significantly weakened. The Olog I was looking for was near.
Right, lads. Time for a little bit of darkness and a whole lot of ghoul blood.
The frog-blooded Olog. Training by taking on a nest of ghouls. This Olog would make a fine addition to the army, with the relative strength of a frog, and the poison to back it up.
Especially that matron's.
He'd conduct trials like this weekly just to make sure his poison was of the highest standard. These ghouls didn't stand a chance, but I had to get down there to prove my worth. I had to convince him to go to war against one of the strongest orcs. My elven light would make quick work of these ghouls. The rest would fall to my sword. Frogblood was overcome with poison. I'd proven my strength to him, so now it was time to ask for his hand in this war. Would the Frogbloods join? Bagabug does get enraged by poison, but he's also weak to it, the only element that actually hurts him. Thankfully, he agreed to join. After recruiting the legendary Frogblood Olog, I headed back to the desert area. Every team needs a wild card, and I had the perfect one in mind. Even though he's completely crazy, he should join up. Years ago, he actually had an encounter with Bagabug. Bagabug was wrangling Caragors, and then he was ambushed by 3 orcs that thought they could take him out. To attack Bagabug like this is absolutely crazy.
A kettle! In the kettle! 2 mice! Squeaky, squeaky!
This is exactly what Luga is. Crazy. Crazy to the bone. I was there that day years ago when he attacked Bagabug. 3 of them charged in, but they underestimated just how crazy Bagabug is, and how easily he becomes enraged. The fight did not go well, but Luga survived. Even though he's crazy, he has cunning, and he's very, very sneaky. I was tracking one of the disgraced judges that ran whenever Bagabug's forces
Don't be
attacked.
sticking your arm near them. I've been starving them for days.
I knew Luga would be crazy enough to attack him. I was right. He showed up. A truly crazy orc to attack a judge. But he wasn't alone. He brought along 2 resurrected legendary orcs, Mug the Bitter, and one of the undead Baga variants.
Oink, said the willow tree. Oink, oink.
This reminded me of the time he attacked Bagabug with 2 orcs. But this time was different. Luga was stronger. Luga was smarter. Luga was crazier. He had also been studying in the mystic arts, so he fought himself a match for a judge. Also, I would be intervening. This was my judge after all, and I should be the one to bring him to justice. He fled from combat right when Bagabug was attacking, right when my fort was at my weakest. You can see that Mug the Bitter still has some fight left in him, and the Baga. Mug was one of Baga's original bandits, but he sadly fell to disease. But since he was one of Baga's favourites, Baga brought him back to life.
Very much doubt you'll survive this. But if you do, maybe this time I'll recruit you.
The judge was toying with me. He was confident, even though Mug was on an absolute rampage. Baga as well. Between the pair of them, they could easily defeat this judge. Their years of experience. Baga attacked right when the judge was running for me, and Mug went in using his enraged abilities. You can see this only spurred on the judge, but that wouldn't matter. Because of this, Luga actually got bored and ran off chasing some orcs. He was crazy, so it was going to take a lot for me to get his attention. He's a sucker for a chase, and he knew that Mug the Bitter and Baga the Alchemist would take care of the judge easily enough. They used their years of experience to take out the judge when he was attacking Talion, Baga the Alchemist walking right up behind him and plunging his axe directly into his spine. The judge fell, disgraced, dishonoured. Another orc that fled the battle had finally been brought to justice. With Luga having had run off, I had to find him again, but it didn't take long. I summoned my trusty elemental fire Grog, and proceeded to scout the desert area in search of strong orcs. Luga has always been attracted to fighting strong orcs, so they'd be the best place to start. I also followed a trail of dead orcs and crazy mutterings. Eventually, I came to Luga.
Hungry pigs!
There's the maggot! Snatch him!
A kettle! In the kettle! 2 mice! Squeaky, squeaky!
He was leading this black hark orc directly into a trap. Many orcs underestimate Luga because of his crazy mutterings. Blackheart would surely fall for the trap. But I had to intervene. I couldn't let these two fight. I had to get Luga's attention. I couldn't let him run off again.
This requires a closer examination of your beautiful corpse!
This encounter had me questioning why every single orc seems to think that my corpse is beautiful. Anyway, this is no time for thinking. Luga got 1 strike off on Blackheart. A devastating strike that enraged. Luga then took him down and punched him in the back of the head repeatedly. He was toying with him until he decided to take his head. With Blackheart dead, I finally got to speak to Luga. I explained to him as best I could what Bagabug had done to me. Because of Luga's past with Bagabug, he agreed to take part in this fight. I then headed back to a much nicer, lush, green part of Middle-earth. I'd heard rumours amongst my ranks that there was about to be a big fight that was going to take place. 2 very powerful orcs were in the area. Before I can get to that, I was ambushed.
I know we got a turncoat, and the best way to find him is to string up the corpse of his boss. And look, his boss is right here.
Bagabug had sent his reckless assassins after me. Many orcs had tried, thanks to the bounty on my head. This orc was truly reckless to try and come after me single-handedly. He did not comprehend the sheer power of my threshing sword. That, combined with my fire elven light, I made quick work of any grunts he brought with him. There it was just me and him left, one-on-one. He became enraged after I used some of my undead necromancy powers, but he was weak. I wasn't going to toy with him any longer. I was going to sink arrow after arrow into his head until he fell. That is the look of regret. He fell far into the ocean. I'm sure we won't see the reckless orc again. After dealing with that bounty hunter, I followed different murmurings of orcs until I came across the fight. Everyone was talking about it, so it was easy to find. The Abandoned had taken it upon himself to attack the Betrayed. The Betrayed being Baga's right-hand man whenever he betrayed me. He was there that day, on top of that snowy mountain, when Bagabug had taken my manhunter orc hostage. He said some strong words to me there. Words I'll never forget. And now the Abandoned was going to kill him. What they said to each other chilled me to my bone. Such wordsmiths, both of them trading vocal blows, but all they'd succeeded in is making each other enraged. I was going to let these two fight it out one-on-one, but then I was noticed. The Betrayed's known me for a very long time, so he has a keen sense of when I'm around, which is why he's completely immune to my stealth, the same as Bagabug. So I had no chance but to help. The Betrayed had brought many orcs with him, and he was also very formidable. I do not think the Betrayed fully knew about my threshing sword, so I decided to introduce him to it. It was very effective against him. Right when I was going to work, the Abandoned called in his elite guard. These were orcs he'd hand-picked and trained with for years. They salivated at the challenge of the Betrayed. They swarmed him. But the Betrayed was strong. The odds were stacked against him, but he was fighting back and holding his own. Even with the full power of the Abandoned and his elite guard, the Betrayed was able to rally, until the Abandoned lost it. He hoisted him above his head and slammed him into the ground. But then...
Who's hunting who? Makes no odds to me.
Another one of Bagabug's mercenaries arrived. I had to deal with him quickly, before the Betrayed could regain any more composure. I made a miscalculation and they both became enraged. The fight was back on. While the Betrayed was weak, I plunged my sword into his chest. I'd done it just as the Abandoned collapsed with exhaustion. This fight was about to be over. But the Betrayed had other plans. I quickly got the abandoned back on his feet. I knew I had to kill this mercenary. He was getting in the way. Only then could we focus all of our energy on the betrayed. The mercenary became weak, and I was able to slot an arrow directly through his head. This enraged the betrayed, who was standing beside him right when it happened. But there was nothing he could do. The abandoned called in more of his elite guards. They cornered the betrayed and laid into him. A mixture of ruthless aggression and firebombs rained down on the betrayed. I then moved in to finish the job. He betrayed me, and it's up to me to exact my revenge. I quickly countered his shield and plunged my sword directly into his neck. Scoff the betrayed was finally dead. Before we had time to speak, a rampaging Olog ran into the fight. After the money on my head, no doubt. He summoned in the explosive orcs, which laid fire on everything. An idiotic move, as he was not immune to fire.
I reckon all these other orcs will have to form a queue behind this big fella.
The limp leg couldn't even do his own speaking. I immediately exploded the head of that annoying talking orc. I charged out my thrashing sword and unleashed a devastating blast right when he was running towards me. The shock waves rippled all across Middle-earth. After that, I could finally speak to the abandoned. I commanded him to gather his troops in Seargost. It was time to face Bagabug. But before we could attack, I had to head to the desert region. I'd received word from the painter that he needed my assistance. We were to meet atop this tower to discuss. But I was attacked by a Stormbringer orc. Bagabug had begun sending his stronger Stormbringer orcs. Orcs much like him. Orcs with the power to bring storms. Stronger and easily enraged. We commenced in an epic fight atop the tower. But this Stormbringer was nowhere near as powerful as Bagabug. And he soon fell. What did Bagabug think this could achieve? Surely he knew this orc couldn't kill me. He must have just been trying to slow me down. After dealing with that assassin, I headed back to Seargost. There was a pestilent Olog I had to deal with before commencing the raid.
It's also simple. It's also very simple.
Massey the Massive had come back to life. Thunderhead had caught wind of this and was leading the assault on Massey. Such unsanctioned resurrections had also drawn the attention of two Bag of the Alchemists. They were acting as agents of the multiverse, and Massey was not supposed to be alive. Massey was an agent of chaos, and could destroy the fabric of time by being left alone.
You want some?
But just then we were ambushed.
Nice to see old friends, especially when you get the drop on them.
The Fearful was another Olog that Bagabug had resurrected.
You want some? You think that was the first time I've been burned in battle? Please.
But this wouldn't be enough to stop us. Thunderhead charged at Massey, while the two Bagas stayed behind to take on the Fearful Olog. I also decided to go after Massey. I had to know how he came back to life, and what he intended on doing. Could he have come back stronger? It doesn't seem like that. While Massey was getting terrified of my executions, the Baggers were introducing the Fearful to their fire weapons. These Baggers were not messing around, and they quickly burned the Fearful. After the Fearful fell, Massey ran. I chased after him. I had to make sure he wouldn't be a threat. I had to make sure he wouldn't intervene in my revenge. I shamed him down. I had to keep his mind simple.
It's simple! So simple!
And just like that, my Avengers had been assembled. But how would they fare against the might that is Bagabug's fort?
Bagabug, fight!
Subscribe for more of that delicious Shadow of War content. Come on, it's probably free to do. And if it isn't, maybe it's worth the money. I don't know. I haven't checked it out yet, but you can trust me. I'm an anonymous voiceover. Those are very trustworthy.